and then we're good to go.
Recording in progress.
Excellent. Yep, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite aviation podcast. It's the All Things Aviation podcast, and this is episode number 2. Numero uno. No, that's number 1. Sorry, I messed that up. Okay, cool. So how's everybody? Yeah, the thing is that sometimes we make mistakes in life. Okay. But the important thing is to come back from a mistake. Yeah. I was having dinner last night with family, and we're talking about how, sometimes when you're coming into land, the plane might go around, and everybody at dinner said, that's terrifying. One time that happened to me, and I thought I was going to die. And I was the only pilot in the room. And I said, oh, no, it might have just been, that the pilot really couldn't get the aircraft down. Maybe there was, a very wild crosswind. And at that particular moment in time, it was too difficult to grace that landing. And I think I might have helped put people at ease when I said some of those things that I said yesterday. I think that this is what this podcast is about, is putting people at ease. People that are not sure, you might listen and go, I like that perspective. And with that, I will introduce my awesome team of great individuals. Okay, we've got the amazing Junior First Officer Seth Van Beek. Yeah. And we've got the amazing Nadine. So that's the All Things Aviation podcast crew. We thought it might be best to kick the show off by talking about what an amazing time we had last week when we all met each other for the first time. So what happened? I got to London, and then I met up with Nadine first. First time ever after 7 months of clubhousing, 7 months of FaceTiming, of WhatsApping. At one point, Nadine made me download WhatsApp to my desktop. And then all of a sudden, we are hanging out, and we gave each other a crazy hug, of course. We got on the tube, went to London Heathrow. Nadine, would you like to take it from the point when we got to reception at the Hilton?
Yeah, we got to reception. We said we want to use the bar. We went upstairs. It was amazing. It was lovely. You could see the whole airport from this bar. We spoke to a couple of pilots before the rest of everybody else got there. Had some wasabi peas.
That's true.
That was, I don't know what his thing is about wasabi peas, but he's got a strange relationship with them that I won't go too
Love hate
into. Yeah, just eat the peas, my guy.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. So I was quite fascinated about the fact that bar seemed, it felt like a speakeasy type deal where like you show up to the reception and it's like they ask you to wait, where you going? Oh, the river bar upstairs. Wait here, and then you wait, and then they bring you to the lift, and then they press a number. I'm not gonna say the number, 14, and then you get all the way up there, and then you're in what used to be an old control tower. Right, so it's got like this nice rounded view. So it already looks amazing. You've got like a great view of the airport, and yeah, and that's where we were. Shortly afterwards, Zul Aviation joined us. That was great. Very bubbly guy. Really cool personality. He knows a lot about aviation, so that was cool to have him join us. And shortly afterwards, my friend Fazia joined as well. She used to work at Heathrow at some point in security. And then shortly after that, Seth and Big joined us as well. And it was, from that point on, one big happy family. Seth, how would you tell that story? So that night when we all met each other for the first time, what was going through your mind?
I was just worried about getting there. So I had started, it started at a long day in work and got home, 20-minute nap. And I was like, okay, Heathrow. It's not too far from where I stayed, but it took me about an hour and a half to find the rooftop bar. A journey to Heathrow for me is like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I was just like, the vibes were good from the start. It was good vibes from the time that we walked. It was like we've known each other for 10 years, like a reuniting of primary school friends.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that.
Yeah, it felt like I was like, I also the whole time I was just looking at everyone. So by the way, if I was staring at you guys a bit too much, it's just I was in awe. I was like a dog, you know, like when you first get a dog, you know, it goes to the house for the first time and it's just and just looking around, just taking it all in. That was me. I was just like, I made sure that Seth sat right beside me, and I made sure that Nadine was right in my point of view, and then Zul was to my side, and then you had Fazia to like just veering off to the left there. But I made sure I had the crew, you know, like Seth was within touching distance, Nadine was within looking distance, and Zul was within punching distance. So it was perfect.
I just
really.
realized we didn't take any pictures.
Yeah. No, so Fazia
We didn't take any pictures.
Fazia mentioned that to me, and the moment she said that, it really hurt my feelings. But I knew to have taken pictures when we went outside. So when we stepped outside to see the A380 take off. But I remembered at that point, but everybody was having such a good time. I didn't want to be a melt and go, "Oh, guys, would you like the thing I meet you?" I was like, let them all because what was I already doing more than everybody else? I was already filming more than everybody else, wasn't I? So I didn't want to be like, guys, would you like one for the club for the podcast? You know, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. I was just like, oh, because like I feel everybody got filmed. Nadine was on my story like 3 times. Seth, I even did the thing where you zoom in and zoom out for Seth, so everybody did that. Seth, I did everything for and then I was like, at that point, I was like, oh, you know, so but I feel bad and I regret not asking. Because that's what I do best. I always ask.
Sometimes you got to be that guy.
You just got to be that. And I am that guy. That's the thing. Is I'm that guy. You know, but the one time that I should have really just pulled it out the bag and just, you know. But no, it was a great day.
We were having too much fun.
We were having too much fun.
Yeah.
The food was great. We had some really good conversations as well. The conversation felt to me as though we were continuing on from whatever we were talking about the day before. So it didn't really feel like
exactly how it felt.
Because, you know, guys, I think I said this that day as well. When you meet some people for the first time, there's this level of awkwardness. But from the moment I saw Seth, it was a big hug, you know, and I had my arm over his shoulder and we were walking. When it was going as well, I was leaving. I was like walking. I was all right, my son. So, I just had, you know, and the whole time when we were on our way home as well, Fazia was asking me, man, you really like that dude, Seth? I was like, that's my son. I was like, but I feel weird about saying Nadine is our mom. I don't want to say Nadine is our mom, but like, you know, it's because there's been so many times. There's been many times that Nadine has protected us. Protect me. You protect me, Nadine. Like, you're like my walking security. There's been conversations that I tried to get involved in, and Nadine is like, that's zip right there. Like, and in such a way where she's looking out for me, man. Like, I don't know what I would call Nadine. You know, like if Seth is my son.
Auntie. Why am I auntie? I'm...
Yo, you want to be auntie? Like, if it was in a professional setting, you'd be my lawyer. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and then Seth would be
100%.
like, it wouldn't even really be my pilot. Seth would be like the star of Seth would be like Steph Curry, like a basketballer that I'm the manager of. So he's our cash cow. He's bringing us the money. You get me? So like I'm the business guy making sure that he brings us money, but you're the lawyer making sure that I don't make mistake.
That I agree
That's
with.
a good setup.
Do you get me? So it's like if it was in music, Seth is Justin Bieber, I'm the manager, you're the lawyer to make sure that I make sure he makes money and we're not getting scammed left, right, center.
And we're not getting in trouble.
That's what I'm saying. So
we're saying the right stuff at press conferences.
Exactly. So when you go, Seth, so your new single, All I Care About Is Love. What were you thinking about when you were writing that? Well, I was flying at 37,000 feet, and you know, I could see the sunset in the morning, and that's when it hit me. All I care about is love. All right, great. What's your target audience? Everyone, great. But I think it's been a fun week. Aviation is always interesting. When we do our clubhouse rooms, I always ask, so what happened in aviation this week? I don't know why I asked that question, because a lot happens in aviation every week. If it's not one person trying to send us off into the moon, it's somebody else trying to make flying cars, or Delta is trying to buy electronic aircraft. Something is always happening. I thought that we might do a segment at the end of our shows going forward where we talked about this last week as well, where Nadine will give us the rundown of what's happening in the aviation world in terms of news. So I think today we have a fun-packed 10-minute segment towards the end where we're going to talk about the news. Seth Van Beek and I were also looking at educational content. And I think maybe Seth would be best to speak about this particular issue. We just want to make sure that every month, at least, as part of the series of the podcast, we can have educational content so that people can listen and have value from us as opposed to just listening and having a good time. So, Seth, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, bro. So what we're planning, guys, is that every month, probably on a Tuesday or Wednesday, to have theory education. So be it how to become an air traffic controller, how to become a dispatch officer, how to become a pilot. And we'll be answering a lot of questions as to what do you need to get started in aviation and what the funding looks like, scholarships, cadet programs. And then probably later down the line somewhere we'll be having some more theoretical knowledge where we talk about the principles of flight, how an aircraft works, and the stuff that you'll be learning once you start your career in aviation.
That is incredible. I think that this will be massively helpful to a wide range of audience because, whether you're about to get started, it might be one of our podcasts that is led by Seth that you'll learn what to look out for. It might be you're in your training and you've just done your PPL, ground school exams, you're about to start ATPLs, and, Seth starts to talk about principles of flight. Seth, this past weekend has just done his biannual check, isn't it?
Yeah, my OPC.
OPC. What does OPC stand for?
Operator proficiency check.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. I did not know that. Operation proficiency check, which is essentially where you're taken into the aircraft type that you fly and asked to perform a series of maneuvers in an attempt to ensure that you are still proficient, you're still a safe pilot, and you're still the kind of person that they can entrust to transport people from one destination to the other. Am I kind of correct in saying that, Seth?
Yes, sir, that's correct. It's a lot of, so you go through a lot of emergencies, stalls, slow flights, steep turns, engine failures, rapid descents, smoke or fire, fumes in the aircraft. So a lot of different stuff as to check if you're still current and know what you're doing. So you do single engine approaches, single engine missed approach.
And you know what you said to me that was really interesting is that your current aircraft that you fly, the Eclipse 550, you don't have a simulator for this. So this means that you get to do all of this in the aircraft, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of the stuff we do in Europe, because it's an American type, so we don't have a simulator as of yet in Europe. So a lot of the stuff, like our type rating was done in the aircraft. And then all the emergency situations, we simulate them in the plane. So if it's cockpit, smoke in the cockpit, we'll say, okay, there's smoke in the cockpit and run through the checklist as what we would do in the event that there was smoke in the cockpit. But everything's done in the safe manner, so not to jeopardize the actual flight.
So there isn't actually someone, trying to let go a bag of smoke in the cockpit, Like, imagine there's like marijuana plants and they go, oh, smoke in the cockpit, deal with that stuff. And everybody's hotboxing in the cockpit. That never happens, does it? At 5,000 feet hotboxing. That would be, no.
They fly under the influence.
Definitely not. Okay. And it reminds me of when we were doing PPL training, where because those planes we were flying were so small, they would have never said, go into a Cessna 172 simulator. If you're going to do like a, a soft field landing, or if you're going to do some maneuvers in the practice area, you are doing it in the actual aircraft. So it kind of was probably similar to that, except for you're in a much faster airplane and this is real. You're not in the simulator, Yeah.
Something similar to that.
Something similar to that. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So I think quite a lot of our audience hopefully will find a lot of value in that. So we're going to be running that once a month. We will have a pre-segment to it where, because Seth and I are going to talk about pilot training today as well on this episode, we're going to get into it a bit. I don't know what Seth is prepared, but whatever is prepared is fine because we're just going to kind of have a look at certain things. Seth is fresh because he's just finished his training. He's just recently got a job. So there's no better person really to give you perspective. One thing I would say about our show is that, you can trust some of the information we give you, but verify for your own self as well. So feel free to enjoy our content and feel free to digest it, but feel free to do your research just in case, because some things might be slightly outdated, and it's not because we've purposefully done it that way. It's just because, we are doing our best to run a good show, but at the same time provide information. But this information is always changing, and in the world of aviation, our industry is such that information is always the half-life of information is very small in our industry. That's the reason why Seth has to do OPCs twice a year. Yeah, he needs to stay current. Something might have changed in procedures, or in the way things are being done. But yeah, so that's that. We thought we would share that with you guys. We thought that was fun. So we now have two segments. We've got like education every couple of weeks, every couple of episodes. We've got new segments towards the end. We've still got gossips. We're very, very quickly going to start getting into conspiracies. I'm really hoping that next episode we have a guest on for you guys, so that you guys can see and enjoy a different perspective. Eh? Not that Seth and Nadine and I are not interesting enough, but sometimes when somebody else comes on the show and they're bringing their own wealth of experience and background, we can just go and listen. So Seth, maybe should we jump into some is there anything else from last week that we missed out on that you guys that you remember, or that you wanna add, or are we good with that segment? Can we move on?
Yeah,
we can move on. All right. So Seth, I'm young. I'm like 16 or 17 years old, and I'm like you. I've always wanted to be a pilot since I was 12. And it's come to that point where I want to start looking at schools. What's the first thing that I should do or consider or think about?
So the first thing to consider when becoming a pilot is where you want to fly and where you want to live, because there's different types of licenses for different regions. So in Europe, we have EASA. In UK, we have UKCAA. America, we have the FAA. General parts of the world, ICAO. Africa is under ICAO, and Asia is, I think, under the individual CAAs. So initially find out where you want to fly. So be it America, find out what the requirements are there. Europe, I can speak to Europe because that's where I trained and that's where I fly. So to start flight training in Europe, you need a minimum of 5 GCSE O levels or any high school certificate, which includes maths, English, and any 3 other subjects. Physics would be helpful. Geography would be helpful to have, as these are the subjects which a lot of the stuff in aviation stems from. So once you've decided where you want to fly and you have the basic requirements, now each flight school has their own requirements. So the second thing to look at is, what is your budget of training, be it 30 to 50,000, 50 to 70,000, and 70,000 upwards. Now, with anything in life, the more you pay, the better quality you're going to receive. And another thing to be careful with when finding a flight school is that there's a lot of hidden charges. Some charges may not be disclosed in the initial bill. So as a big pointer, always make sure to clarify, what does that cost they're giving you include? Does it include everything from 0 to a frozen ATPL? Or is that only for the theory? Or is it only for the flight training? So make sure that when you're given a price, you know what that price includes. Then the next thing would be to just discover what country you would like to train in. So I trained in Greece simply due to the fact that it's good weather pretty much all year round. The aircrafts at the flight school I trained at were very modern, up-to-date aircraft, and Greece isn't very busy airspace, so you have that time to take everything slow and learn while you're flying. And also there's multiple different types of approaches which you can do. You have access to the ILS, you have access to the VOR DME, the NDB. You still use VOR Airways for your flight, whereas most places it's all RNAV Airways. So you have that option to learn a lot of the basic stuff, which will benefit you once you get into your commercial setup, be that corporate airlines, medical, whatever you get into, you'll have the basic foundation. So the general things, the 3 things I would say that are key to look at before getting and committing yourself to a flight school is where you want to train, is where you want to work, so you know what type of license you want to get in. Number 2, which country you want to train in. Do you want to train at home or do you want to train away from home? And number 3 is what the prices of the flight schools consist of. Another thing is, once you've decided on a flight school from what you've seen online and reviews, always make sure to go there and visit it. But we'll have a more in-depth session where we'll go into the full details of starting your career out as a commercial pilot.
That is incredible. Thank you very much, Seth, for going through what I felt was an in-depth way to think about it, to think about going about it. And really, it's the preliminaries. So it's like these are tick these boxes. Find out what your budget is first. Have a look at a couple of schools to understand what it is exactly that you're looking for, and see what they have, what's accessible to you. So find out where you want to go train. Am I training at home? Am I going away? And then once you've kind of figured all of this out and you have some money, then the rest is basically making sure you visit. You're trusting and verifying. You're trusting but verifying, and then you can start your training essentially, and also ensuring that when you've left school, that you have the right qualifications. In Ireland, for instance, we do a living certificate, and it's not quite like the UK where you can pick 3 subjects to be your main ones. Math, English, and Irish, I believe, are always going to be subjects that you're required to do at living certificate level. But it's always advisable that if you want to be a pilot, that you should probably consider physics, geography, obviously. Because when I was in school training to be a pilot, I did see some physics in there. It wasn't a huge amount. I was surprised by how little of physics was in the actual training. Where you, Seth and Nadine, you guys are from?
Yeah, it's not much.
It's basic level. It's basic. Yeah,
it's very basic. Your Newton's 3 laws of motion from Isaac Newton, your wave frequencies to calculate from crest to crest. Very basic stuff.
Basic stuff, yeah. I'll never forget when I was in secondary school. By the way, well done to Nadine for finally sorting out her background. What looks like a war airline, is that?
Singapore Airlines.
Singapore Airline. Yeah, there you go. And I'll never forget when I was trying to learn my physics definition. So let me ask you guys this. Let me see if you guys still remember this particular definition in physics, okay? Because I've never forgotten it, and there's a reason why. I used to trick myself into learning definitions by giving myself scenarios. So let me start with Nadine with this one, and then I'll go to Seth. Okay. So the question is, it's a physics question. It is, what is the definition of work in physics?
Of work?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I never forgot this one. I don't know. All right. So the question is, in physics, what is the definition of work? You don't know. Okay, cool.
I never did physics.
You never did physics,
I did double science, so I had a bit of each.
Great, no worries. And so Nadine is a student pilot, guys. So you can see that you don't really need to do physics to still be able to fly a plane. Nadine can fly a plane. Nadine has landed an aircraft, but she didn't do physics. So it's not a massive requirement, but it might help a little bit. So let's go to Seth and Vic then. Let's see if Seth knows what work is.
Work. I know it's something to do with joules.
Right. One thing.
Is it the formula? What's the formula? I think it's the formula for work. Force in newtons. No, that's not work. Force in newtons times distance in meters. What's that?
Right. So, and this is the definition of work, not the formula for work. So I'll tell you guys. So I never forgot this. The definition for work is done when force is moving a body. That's the definition of it. It's odd, right? So work is done when something moves something. And it was one of those ones where I was thinking, what's the point of what I've just read? But then it makes sense. So I hate to say this on this podcast, but I started to think about scenarios where work is being done when force is moving a body. That's how I never forgot. Okay, if you caught that segment without me having to say it, welcome to the All Things Aviation podcast. Thank you very much, guys. Work is done when force is moving a body. All right.
Is that what it actually means?
No, well, yeah, that's the definition of it. Yeah, and that question came out in my exams, and that was one of the ones I definitely got my free marks for because I didn't forget it. I wrote it down exactly word for word. I was like, work is done when force is moving the body, But yeah, so understanding what the requirements are, like Seth said, in the countries or wherever you want to fly is very important, because you may find that if you're going to America to go fly, you're going to do things slightly differently. You might train and end up becoming a flight instructor and then going to the air. It's done differently. If you're in Europe, you might train and immediately want to go to a low-cost carrier like Ryanair or EasyJet. If you're in Asia, I think they do things slightly differently also. So understanding this first as a young aspiring pilot is very important. And like Seth said, we're going to get into it more on later episodes. So what I'd like to do now is talk about anything else in aviation that may or may not have happened this past week. I know we said we're going to reserve a 10-minute slot towards the end of the podcast, but that's fine. We can get into it now, because I feel like sometimes talking about, and when you bring a story up, you might have so much to talk about it anyways. So 10 minutes might not be enough. So let's see what we have. What do you have for us, Nadine?
Well, we can start off with SAS. It's 75 years old this weekend.
Happy
75th
birthday
anniversary
to SAS. So Scandinavian Airlines. I'm a big fan of Scandinavia,
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, big fan of the Vikings. The history of the Vikings is very fascinating to me, and what they did in England all those 1,000 plus years ago. We're talking about they would come here on Viking ships, and call them Viking boats. They would cross, the sea, get here, and they used to come. When they first landed here, they came to the north where I actually live. So I live in Newcastle now. So they would come to Northumberland, and there's parts of the north here you call Northumberland, Northumbria. They would land here, and one of the first monasteries that they visited was on Holy Island in Lindisfarne. All right. So they would come there and they would just raid, which included raping and pillaging villages. That's the history. All right. And some people would even suffice to say that the Vikings were notorious for eating mushrooms, which is interesting. And
What kind of mushrooms?
The kind of mushrooms that makes you see stars. The kind of mushrooms.
Lots of psilocybin, yeah?
Yes. The kind of mushrooms that make you
Understood.
trip balls. So those are the kind of mushrooms that they were eating. But that made them fearless as well. And when you're fearless, it means you can go into battle and not be afraid. And this is not direct accounts through history, but the general understanding back then was the English people that lived here would say, they are not afraid. They are fearless. Well, yeah, you're mushrooms. You don't care, Whereas in England, we're busy eating vegetables and praying to God, which is good. What? Eating potatoes. Exactly, right? Before you had the potato blight in the 1800s, where all the Irish then fled to Americas and other parts of the world. They even fled to the Caribbeans as well back then. That's why you have in the Caribbean, there's one particular country, you might remember this, Nadine, where there's a population of Irish people that have migrated there. And over the years, they've gone to a mixed race looking color. So they were obviously Caucasians and have mixed with all the sort of Africans that live there. And then they're now like a slightly different
I think
color.
that's Barbados.
It's not Barbados. It's
not?
the island of, it's called something. See if you can pull it up. Type in.
Well, there's loads of times where loads of Europeans have migrated to the Caribbean. A whole group of Germans migrated to Jamaica as well back in the day. So there's loads of stories like that.
After World War II, quite a lot of the Germans migrated to Argentina. Did you guys know this?
Yeah.
Migrated to Argentina. So there's quite a lot of Germans in Argentina for that reason. But see if you can pull up that island. Type in island in the Caribbean where Irish people live. It's a very interesting island. See if you can find it. But yeah, so shout out to Scandinavian Airlines. I'm a big fan of Viking history. And the airline itself has been around for a long time, obviously, 75 years. What I'd like to know, once you've got done bringing up the country, if you do find it, I'd like to know how many aircraft they have in their fleet. That would be interesting.
Oh, Scandinavian?
Yeah. Because I know they love their 737-8s. I've watched this. Just Planes did a little thing on them a while ago. Do you guys watch Just Planes?
132 aircraft.
132?
Yeah.
Right.
Hold on. So they've got, hold on. I should know this off by heart after writing 20,000 words about them. It's 132 aircraft divided into smaller planes like the CRJ-900, Boeing 737, Airbus 320. Then the larger wide bodies are 330 and 350. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So shout out to them. Are they employing any pilots? I think that's something that some of our audience that are looking for jobs might want to know.
Hold on, let me have a quick look. You never know. They may be.
In the topic of recruitment,
American
Airlines $15,000 signing bonus.
Yeah. You mentioned that. So $1,500 signing bonus for who?
Not 1,500, 15,000.
15,000, and for who's this? Who's this for? Pilots or? For
pilots, yeah. For pilots who get in to fly American Eagle, so the smaller version of American Airlines.
Is that like it's like their, what do you call?
The short haul.
The short haul one. Yeah. They have a name for it. They call it regionals, right? Regional.
Yeah, that's it. To fly the regionals.
To fly regionals. So 15,000. So how would that work? So do you know how much it is to, like, what would be the entry salary? And are we talking, I finished flight school in Europe, I'm coming out there with 250 hours, that's me? Or are we talking flight instructor, 1,500 hours transitioning?
I think it's the direct entry FO for American standard FO requirements. So if it's probably the 1,500 minimum hours to get into direct FO in a.
But would that be fun to do? Because people don't have people want to fly. People don't have jobs right now. So if you've been a CFI for maybe 2 years, you've logged 1,500 hours. This is good for you right now. So you'll get your 15K. And how do you know if they get them that 15K immediately, or do they get it over the course of a year, or do you know? Is there any information on that?
I think it's just as they once they get accepted in.
Yeah.
Bam, 15K hits your bank account. I'm not too sure of the intricate details.
Dude, this is what I like about America. America can do stuff like that. They can just, just throw money. They can do stuff like that. But I think like here, I don't know if something like that could ever happen in like Europe or, in the UK, one company goes, oh, like America is they can do stuff like that. They can just go, everybody come on board and like, we'll just, let's go, let's do it. That's pretty cool. But then also flying for the regionals. I don't know if you were there when our captain friend, Captain Theresa, was telling us about what it's like to fly in the regionals. Were you guys both there, right?
Yeah.
It's tough work. It's tough work, In your first couple of years, you're not making nearly enough money to pay your bills, not to even mention to pay the debt that you were probably in for going to uni and then going to flight school. It's tough. It's hard graft, and you're flying a lot of hours, and a lot of times you're not flying from the airport that you live at. Like, you're having to jump on a plane to go pick a plane up from like a state that's like 3 hours away. A lot of the times that's what that is as well. So if you're getting 15K to sign to work, are you also getting a conducive salary? Because it's like, yes, I'm getting 50K, but if I'm still having to do that job where it's tough, I don't know if it's. And that's why I asked our friend, Captain Theresa, I was like, I don't know what the situation is for most American pilots, but would they ever consider moving to Europe to work? And of course, there's always going to be the barrier of converting your license from FAA to CAA or to EASA, whatever. EASA. So maybe it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But yeah, man, you've gone through all that training and you start your first job. You'd expect to get at least a salary that can keep you honest. You're okay. You're not struggling.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
100%.
I'm sure some people will take the jobs and they'll be happy. And I hope and wish them all happy flying. Our industry is very interesting, especially when you're looking at it from a pilot standpoint. So I really hope that does well for some people. The island that I was talking about is the island of Montserrat.
Yeah.
Montserrat is a Caribbean island and overseas territory of the United Kingdom, also known as the Emerald Isle of the Caribbean, due to the large population of people with Irish descent living there. So
if you get a passport stamp from there, you get a shamrock.
Yeah. That was really interesting last week when we were at Heathrow, guys. We saw that A330 came in from what looked like a flight from Dublin, quite possibly. I'm not sure where it was coming from, but I'd imagine Dublin, or maybe anywhere else from the world. Actually, it could be anywhere really. But if it was coming from Dublin, an A330 has flown all that way to London Heathrow, and I wondered for what reason. But you guys would probably know this better than I.
Cargo
is what we were thinking, right? Yeah,
it's always cargo.
with a big A330.
Yeah, cargo. What else?
If
Why else
how
would they
about
do it?
how
There's
about
not
all
many
the
passengers.
because there's no passengers at all, right?
There's not many. Aer
There's not
Lingus
many.
is not really doesn't have many passengers at the moment. It's cargo. And remember, Aer Lingus is part of IAG network.
Mm.
So if they need an A330 to fly from Dublin to London, it will happen.
So do you think there were any passengers on that flight at all last week, or do you think it was purely cargo?
It could be, but
There
I
could
wouldn't
be.
think it would fill up.
Yeah, oh yeah,
an
of course it probably
A330.
won't fill up. They'll probably just go, yeah, we're taking the A330, which is weird. That would be such a cool experience to be a passenger like on an A330 going literally just 45 minutes. That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Because even when I fly on Ryanair coming into Gatwick, I've been it's been a long time since I did. I think it was 2015 was the last time I did that, and then I flew to Luton with Ryanair as well. Literally, I don't even think maybe 27,000 feet, and then you're there for like 2 minutes, and they start to descend.
Well, they used a 777 stretch to go from London to Madrid. I was on that flight.
Wow,
She.
as wild.
I was in Madrid for the day doing training, and we came back on a 777 stretch, 777 ER.
Let me ask you this, Seth. So I want to say that that's not good for a big aircraft but let me explain why I think that is, and I might be wrong here, and I hope I'm wrong because I don't want to spread information that's not true. Is there something to do with the pressurization of this aircraft when they're that big? Is not conducive for doing that short kind of flight. It's not. It messes up the pressurization system in the aircraft or something like that.
What I know is that usually for those aircraft, for them to reach optimum, why bigger aircrafts aren't used on shorter flights is for those big aircrafts, or any jet engine in general. Jet engines have better performance at higher altitudes. They have more RPM, therefore less fuel burn. More RPM is more air through the bypass ducts. And also, I'm not going to go too deep into the knowledge behind that and all, but the thing is, the higher an aircraft goes, the more optimum RPM that it operates at, so less fuel. Now, if you have a 777 or 330, which is meant to operate between 35 and 410 flight levels, then if it's flying at 27 or 26, it's going to burn tons and tons and tons extra fuel than it should actually be burning. So most companies hesitate to use them if they're not going to make a profit. Now, to make a profit for that, you would need a very, very big payload in order to suffice and compensate for that increase in fuel burn on those short sectors. I was speaking to one of my captains, and he was like, a 747 can burn up to 2 tons of fuel on taxi.
Yeah, that's enough to hit a village in Africa for 27 years.
Yeah, it's it's crazy the amount of fuel that these big aircraft use. Hence why they use the 73s, 320s, which the same principle still applies, that they operate better at higher altitudes because of how the engines are built. But the fuel consumption may not be massively affected on the shorter flights. It will be an increase, but the difference between the increase on a 777 and a 320
is
or
massive.
777 and 7, they don't compare with each other. Hence why on the shorter legs, it's more preferable to use the smaller, well, we can't say smaller because they're still massive, but in comparison to the 777, a 320 or 737 is a smaller plane. Yeah,
that is a fantastic explanation of what my question was. It's got nothing to do with the pressurization system. I must look into it again. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, if you're looking at fuel burn and you're looking at big engines, they do better at higher altitudes. And if you're sort of like listening or watching a podcast and you're wondering, well, why is that? Well, there's just less air up there. So there's less resistance. Yeah. That's the simple answer to that question. There's nothing complicated. If you're going, well, why? There's just less air. That's it. There's also less pressurization up there, right? It has the
Yeah,
pressure
less
increases
pressure.
the lower you come down in altitude to sea level. So the planes just do better. They just burn less fuel. And so if you take a 777, for instance, and you're flying at 25,000 feet, like Seth said, it's just way more air is going through the engine, and the engine is working hard, and it's just burning more. And that's it. Whereas up there, it's just going, wee, not much going on up here, and then it can go
Yeah.
further. So that's the simple sort of my weird mechanics for how that works. Again, we're going to go in depth into quite a lot of stuff on this podcast that everybody's going to really enjoy, especially if you're like a real geek. You're going to love it because we're going to break things down. But, we're on episode 2. We're just getting started. So we're still finding our bearings. When we first started Clubhouse as well, it took us a while to kind of get into the nick of things. But once we got rolling, we were unstoppable. But with the podcast as well, we're finding our feet. At the minute, we're like the only upcoming aviation podcast in the UK. So, hey, give us some props. You know what I'm saying?
BBC stuff.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, about that. Yeah, we're coming. But I haven't submitted the application yet. Yeah, but I have working around the clock. But I'm thankful because by the way, guys, whenever something serious happens here and I go, I'm thankful. Just know that I'm about to BS. I'm joking. When I'm giving thanks, at one of our speeches on stage one day, and I say I'm thankful. I don't want Seth to go, here he goes, he's about to BS right now. No. But no, I'm thankful for the fact that we can even do this at all. Outside of our podcasting, we do other things as well. So it's just getting there one step at a time. I've written my tasks for what I want to achieve with All Things Aviation podcast for the next week. And for me, one thing that I really want to look at is definitely the application, but also just getting the store going. By the time we look back in 3 months' time at what we've built, we will be very proud of ourselves for the effort and the hard work that it took to get there. So, but yeah, it's just one step at a time. The fact of the matter is we're recording episodes weekly now, without fail. Even though today I kept everybody waiting 4 hours, by pure default.
Yes, 4 hours.
Yeah. You don't want me flying your aircraft.
No.
Like, where's the pilot? He's still in Manchester. What?
You remind me of the airline Leah.
Leah,
it's a Caribbean airline.
Oh man,
it stands for late if at all.
Oh
Leah.
my god, late if at all. That's definitely, yeah. Sign me up for that.
That's the Leah joke.
There's only I'm only flying for an airline if it's called Leah. That's the only way I'm flying, because I can justify
late if at all.
I can justify being late. If I show up late, the passengers are like, we were expecting that you'd be late anyway. The fact that you're 30 minutes early is actually a blessing.
Unfortunately, that's very true.
Is there anything worse than, like, would you be scared if you got on a plane and the captain radioed over to the cabin, like in one of those PA announcements by mistake? He jumps on the plane, right? And you overhear the conversation with the co-pilot, and the plane is still on the ground, and he goes, "Brian, where are we going? What? Where are we? Are we going to Spain? Okay. Oh, Italy. Okay." And then everybody's like,
"Do you know what?
Who's flying this plane?" How would that make you feel?
I've got a story for you.
All right, let's go.
Flying to Montserrat. Yeah. The pilot said to me, "Would you like to sit in the first officer's seat?" Sorry. I don't have a license. It's fine. You can sit there. Sorry. Okay then. So I sat there while we flew to Montserrat from Antigua.
But wait, what sort of aircraft was this though?
Oh, it's a propeller aircraft. It's tiny. I think max was 8 seats.
Was it like a? Do you remember if it was a high wing propeller aircraft? Because I know straight away what it would have been. It would have been a Cessna Caravan if it was that. Because that's the kind of planes they like using in those ends. Those Caravans are workhorses, and they don't even retract the landing gear. They just talk on. They're workhorses, yeah. and they're terrible as well. Yeah. So they can
Right, Fly Montserrat. Their aircrafts are they are tiny. I cannot see the name.
How does it look?
Yeah. Pop a thing in our chat.
Two propellers.
Oh. What could that be, Seth? If you were to have a guess, two propellers, what do you think would be the best to use for it? Probably like a King Air. King Air, yeah. King Air.
Beechcraft, or not Q400.
800.
That plane. That I think it's the 800. They use them at Transmaldives.
Oh yeah. How about if it was one of those Cessna 340s?
Oh, this one. I have no idea.
Oh, you sent in the chat. Oh, that plane.
So when he said, "Would you like to see
Brayton Norman?"
To see.
You know, it's a perfect plane as well. You know why? It's even called an Islander.
Mm-hmm.
That's the perfect plane. It's literally called an Islander. No, really, it is. And right beside it, you've got that powerful looking Pilatus. Oof. What a powerful aircraft that one is.
I've got pictures of me sitting in the seat.
Did you touch the controls?
Of course I did.
Of course.
It's 54 kilometers, Montserrat to Antigua. So
the moment they asked me, hey, you can sit in the co-pilot seat, I'd have been like, say enough, my G. Do you want me to do the landing as well? From the right seat, I was like, yeah. Flaps one. Say nothing, my bro. Flaps.
Airport was so relaxed. It was so relaxed going into Montserrat. It was like going into a corner shop.
Yeah.
So Tesco's is too big for that airport. You went in, you said, yeah, I'm going back to Antigua.
Yeah.
They stamped your passport and then you went out.
Yeah, you just felt like you were just going down to one of the Londons down the road.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly how it felt.
It was a spa experience.
Yes, a co-op. I'm going to co-op.
Yeah.
You go through and then you get on a plane and you end up in a different country.
I would have loved that whole sit in the cockpit thing. Flaps one. Hey mate, are you in? Have you checked your speed, mate? Because it seems like you're coming in a bit too hot there, bruv. Might want to slow down before I stick down the I don't want to blow this flaps, you know. And then speed check. Yeah, speed check. Flaps one. There you go, bro. Let's go. Hey mate, do you fly? You know. Do you fly?
It was amazing.
I know a thing or two, you know. I dabble here and there. How important, Seth, is checking speed before you. So when you're doing your landing checklist, how important is every item on that checklist?
Crucial. Everything on there is crucial. So our landing checklist is gear.
Yep.
Brake, flaps, Mr. Approach altitude.
Altitude.
Without that gear, you're done for.
You're done for. You are finished. You could start considering a serious career in taxi driving because you probably will not fly an aircraft for a long time. Because that's one that by the books will automatically come out as human error. There's no the plane wasn't maintained. This is you messed up. So gear, and then.
But there is ways around that. There is stuff way around it. That sometimes there's been incidents in the past where the gear's been selected down, the lights come on, but the gear's not dropped. So if you have the indication, but then. Again, it could be argued that when you selected the gear down, did you not hear it extended? Did you not feel the reducing drag?
Yeah.
And after that is that it could have been a high workload situation.
And you just weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
So in your Eclipse 550, you hear the landing gears dropping.
Yeah. So you hear the best way to put it is you hear the drag.
You hear the drag
because you hear it. You hear the wind hitting the gear and it goes boom.
Yeah.
So you can actually hear it and you feel like a reducing speed.
Yeah. You feel it reducing speed as well.
Kick the power.
Wow. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Yeah. And then you check your brakes as well.
Yeah, so for ABS anti-skid braking system, you just confirm that they're armed because if you don't have ABS, there's a different braking method that's required. So it's just the briefing point if you're flying an aircraft without the anti-skid braking system that you point out that, okay, we don't have anti-skid, so I'm going to brake using this a technique.
Yeah.
And then flaps. The next thing is that the flaps are in landing, which is confirmed by the flap lever and the flap section on the screen. And then missed approach altitude so that you don't bust an altitude.
Right. So missed approach altitude so that if you had to go around, you know, okay, this is where we need to get to and we're safe. We're not higher, we're not lower, we're just where we need to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's say missed approach is 2,500. Make sure, and it would say that on your charts anyway. So you just go 2,500 for missed approach.
Yeah, so it'll tell you what to do. And when it's flown in autopilot, you'll put it into alt change mode.
Yeah.
So it needs altitude to know what level it needs to level off at.
Yeah.
Hence why we put because the missed approach thing is
Yeah.
toga button,
Yeah.
toga power, flat up, and then
VNAV.
you'll put it in the approach. And then once you're at the required level, pop the autopilot in.
Yeah.
Dependent on what you run around for.
Yeah. So toga, take off to go around. You climb, flaps up once you're safe to do so. Landing gear. Actually, what would come up? Landing gear first, and then flaps.
So flaps you have. So if you have landing flaps, you get those flaps up as soon as
possible.
Then positive rate of climb.
Gear up.
The gear will go up, so you gear up, positive rate of climb. And then 400 feet, you get takeoff flaps up. You're going to alt change, nav, and then put the yaw damper autopilot in, depending on what you've run around for.
Yeah. So that nav, do you specify between VNav and LNav, or do you just your aircraft just has nav?
So nav, the nav that we put in is LNav, so it's for the guidance.
Lateral navigation for left, right.
Yeah, so that's basically based on the FMS, and that will give you guidance on. It will basically fly the route.
It's basically like a vector out.
Yeah, something. But even when we don't go around, we put that in.
Right.
So it's basically just flying the route in the FMS.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's a vector because what an FMS system, flight management system, does is it gives you direction between different points, right? So it's like so it's like a vector without having ATC tell you turn 120 degrees and then turn left 150 degrees. It's basically
So
it just flies a route. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then you go around. Wow, so that's very. They used to when I was in America, we used to look at it as Gump. I don't know if I can remember it now, but G was for gear. I don't know why I said it now because I can't remember it. P. Why did I even say it? Gump? Have you heard of the Gump checklist? It's a very, very common one. I'll see if I'll pop it into Google. So it's a very common one that is kind of like generic that you should kind of remember. I'll see if I can bring it up here. Here it is. The Gump checklist. Yeah, okay. So the first thing is gas. So make sure that fuel is on the proper tank, fuel pump on as required. Obviously, this is when you're flying like a small propeller aircraft. Undercarriage, landing gear down, making sure that you're good. Mixture, make sure that the mixture is full and it's rich. So it's set, and propeller is set to prop, and then seatbelts are on. So Gump's checklist. So flight students, when you're doing your CPL, if you're doing America, that'll be one that you would be required to know just like that. And that's going to save your life in many instances. Although a checklist is there so you don't have to think about it from memory, it's there so you actually look at it. Because some of the errors that have happened in the past is people have checklists and they're doing it from memory, they miss something, and then they get in trouble. So a checklist is there so you can actually look at it and then verify whilst you're going through it. Are there any other stories?
100%.
Yes, sir. Are there any other stories that maybe we've not looked at or?
I think we've spoken about quite a bit.
Yeah.
Except the Dean's great friend in India.
Yes, Rakesh.
I like that segue.
My billionaire friend.
Is he actually your friend?
Huh?
He's actually your friend.
He went
my
to
friend.
primary school with him.
He's my friend, my billionaire friend. Yes.
Guys. Let's stop playing. You know this guy?
Yeah, they were in primary school together.
Right. Okay. Cool, man.
I mean, I've been to many places. I could have walked straight past him.
Yeah. No, because
I've been to many places and been in many high-profile situations and people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the likelihood. It's more likely that Seth would fly him in the Eclipse than he would have gone to primary school with him. That's how I was saying, like, but someone like that. So tell me about this Indian man.
Known as, right? So he's known as the Indian Warren Buffett, right?
Okay.
And he's making plans with the former CEO of Indigo and Jet Airways and a senior executive of Delta Airlines to launch a new ultra-low-cost airline to tap into the demand of the domestic air travel in India.
Great. He's the Warren Buffett of India. What's his net worth?
Yes. It's 4.6 billion.
Whoa.
Very far from Warren in real life, but I would still take 4.6 billion. I still if someone said, Daps, you're worth $1 billion, I'd be like, that's all right. Yeah, that's cool.
So he's considering investing 35 million into a low cost airline, and he will own 40% of the share. Wow. So obviously, because of this, Airbus and Boeing are in stiff competition in hopes to get the new orders for this airline.
They need to be careful with Airbus, because if you pull your orders from Airbus right now, it's a contractual agreement. When you want to buy an aircraft, you say, okay, we need these types of aircraft for this time because this is when our business will be making that turning point or whatever it is you're doing. And it used to be the way that Boeing was less graceful, if you will, because it was Boeing, best in the world, right? And Airbus was more sort of like at your beckoning because it was Airbus and everybody else flies a Boeing. But how the tables have turned with all the incidences that we've had, or the incidents we've had with Max, because with what's happened with the Max now, Boeing is no longer in that captain's seat, if you will, where they're telling you how things are. Boeing is begging you almost to take their aircraft, almost in a way, if you think about it, because what's happened is that some airlines were trying to back out of their agreements to take on these aircraft from Boeing and Airbus. What we're saying is that Boeing is just calm. They're just like, sure. Airbus is like, no, it's a contract. Like you have to, we can't do anything for you. You have to take the aircraft. And airlines are backed into a position where they're not making a lot of money. And all the aircraft they said they wanted, Airbus is still forcing on them. So that's a bit interesting. And I was listening to this.
Isn't that the same thing that happened with Kingfisher as well? You know, Kingfisher.
They've gone bust, right?
Yeah, long time ago in 2012.
Yeah, okay.
And another Indian billionaire, Vijay Malla. Yeah, he got a bit.
You're going to that. Well, I hope this gentleman and his enterprise do well. I hope that they do well. I was only pointing out that story because when you're trying to acquire these aircrafts now, you have to be sure of your business plan because Airbus is not allowing for, I'm not sure. And this is what was interesting as well. This was during lockdown when airlines actually had a reason to say we can't really purchase. We thought we were going to get 50. We only need 10. Airbus is like, don't care. Whereas Boeing, I was listening to this on I think it was the AvTalk podcast, and they've got two amazing hosts on there, and they talk about what happens in the industry quite a lot. And obviously, as a podcast fan myself, I've been sort of listening to that podcast, and they were just talking about it. And I don't know firsthand that's all Boeing and Airbus are doing, but it feels like they're verified sources. They can convey the fact to us, and we can spill the information back on here on our podcast as well. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. But
definitely,
we wish them the best. I wanted you guys to know that I reached out to an Indian flight school. They've got about 9,000 followers on Instagram. So I came across their page on Instagram and I saw that they were doing some things. And I reached out and I said, hey, would you like to be a guest on the podcast? So they said, hey, we'll check out your stuff and come back to you and let you know. They're like very big into pushing aviation in India. And I thought we could do a collab where we could talk to them. See, I don't know what it's like to fly in India. I don't know what the requirements are. I don't know how many people wants to be a pilot in India. I don't know how many women are in Indian aviation. There's so much about Indian aviation that is not known. It'll be interesting to find out, and I'm sure our audience would love to see. You don't know. We might have one future pilot that lives here and doesn't care about flying in Europe, wants to go all the way to India to go fly Indian airspace. Who knows? And I've heard things that like sometimes they're not even allowed to fly the aircraft manually at all. It's all like down to the bottom. Jeez. Autopilot, something like that. Yeah, but this is on Clubhouse, so it'd be really good to really get into it, like, because I know you guys, Seth, sometimes you might be able to fly your aircraft a bit if you want, maybe, right? Just a bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So our company procedure is up to 400 feet, the autopilot engagement, and then disconnect at or above minima,
which is 200 usually.
Yeah, between 200 to 500 feet.
Yeah. But could you, for instance, clear blue skies, clear blue skies, you're IFRing in, everything is perfect. You can see the runway like you're looking at it on, 3D, right? And you're at 1,000 feet.
Yeah, you can get a visual approach. So once you get a visual approach, you then have the liberty to disconnect and then fly it manually.
Do you do that often?
But the problem with that is that if you've not briefed for your visual approach and how you're going to fly it, what you're going to do, then you can't do a visual.
You can't do a visual. So you have to have planned it. And so that doesn't happen often, obviously, because you have to plan it out. Yeah.
So most times you plan out when you're doing. So how I do it is top of climb, make sure everything's set up for the approach. Even if it's a bit of a long flight, I just like to have everything set up ahead of time to give me time to study the plates, to study the airport, so that when I'm briefing the pilot I'm flying with, I know that, okay, at point X, I need to be this altitude, this speed, this altitude, this speed, so that I give him a comprehensive brief and I'm able to fully share my mental model with my other crew member.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode today. It's literally just come up to an hour. But thank you very much for your eyes, because this might eventually become a video. Although it's on Zoom, I have to say I'm quite impressed by what the quality looks like now. I was on a Zoom call to Nigeria 2 days ago, and suffice to say, the quality on the recording wasn't the best. But the quality today has been acceptable to my standards, I would say. So I would quite possibly be making this into a video, so you can enjoy on YouTube, but it's also going to go on all podcasting platforms. So thank you very much for your eyes and your ears, and we'll catch you again this time next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.